and negative stigma took over our school cafeterias. Me, secretaries, cafeteria managers, we all became debt collectors. Since 1984, my predecessor, Frank Harris, was coming here each year in search of funding for free meals in Connecticut for our students. Now today, my colleagues and I sit here before you again today, 40 years later, asking for free meals for all students. We're asking that you please fill in the gap for CEP. The inequity exists currently as non-CEP schools are having their federal breakfast reimbursement subsidized with state funds, ultimately providing with them the full federal free reimbursement rate of $2.73. This results in districts with the greatest need generating less revenue than comparable non-CEP districts. When a food service department operates at a loss, their district must fill in the gap at the end of the year. Districts must use educational funding to cover shortfalls, thereby limiting funds to support learning. Many of the schools and districts that fall in the gap are also high-need districts that are especially hit hard when they choose to feed all of their students, and funds that are desperately needed to support education are used for the shortcomings. Here's a little math. CEP district, excuse me, serves 524,288 breakfasts annually. CEP allows 2/3 of their meals to be reimbursed at the federal free rate of $2.73. The remaining student meals are reimbursed at the paid rate of 38 cents cost per meal. CEP district receives a total reimbursement of $1,014,210. A non-CEP district that serves the same amount of breakfasts and are reimbursed at the combined reimbursement rate and state subsidy to equal $2.73, receives a total reimbursement of $1,431,306. The math shows the CEP district receives $417,096 less annually for breakfast funding compared to a non-CEP district. We watched how free meals changed cafeteria life during the pandemic. Breakfast for all, including CEP districts, is a great start. Please pass Bill 5510 for all of our students because you cannot teach a hungry child. Thank you.
Good morning, co-chairs and esteemed members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Ashley Carl, and I'm a registered dietitian and director of food services for Plainville Community Schools. So ensuring continued funding for school breakfast and lunches for students eligible for reduced price meals is incredibly important. As a child, I received reduced price meals, and it's a large part of the reason why I became a dietitian. I did not have a guaranteed meal at home, and it is critical that we provide all children with the necessary resources to excel in school, and breakfast plays a crucial role in setting them up for success each day. Therefore, I fully support HB 5510 and that concerning funding for school meals. Currently, all students, regardless of socioeconomic status, benefit from breakfast at no cost, and we as food service directors are immensely grateful to provide breakfast at no charge to our students. Within our Plainville High School, within the past year, our breakfast participation has increased 150%. These meals serve as their one guaranteed meal, and the inclusivity and comfort they experience knowing they have access to a nutritious breakfast without embarrassment of not having funds on their account is truly invaluable. Guaranteeing that lunch is provided at no charge for students eligible for reduced price meals is of the utmost importance. These individuals come from families with an annual gross income for a family of four, ranging between $39,001 and $55,500. By offering meals at no cost to these families, we alleviate the financial burden associated with paying for school meals. This has saved Plainville and families about $6,000 as of February 29th. The funding not only supports the well-being for these families, but also promotes a more equitable educational environment for all students. Ensuring access to school meals for all students not only benefits our educational institutions and families, but it also serves as an economic driver for our local businesses, particularly our farmers. When school food services have reliable income for meals, they can invest more in purchasing local foods, thereby stimulating our local economy. Furthermore, prioritizing healthier meal options contributes to the overall well-being of our children. So we recently served hydroponic strawberries that were grown in South Windsor, Connecticut, and I had parents reaching out to me telling me how their kids ate their favorite fruit at school that day. Those same strawberries were provided this morning for the breakfast, and I hope you guys enjoyed them. And lastly, I would just like to remind you how basic school essentials, including Chromebooks, transportation, textbooks, are provided to students regardless of income, Get nutritious meal at no charge is a basic essential, and research has proven to decrease absenteeism and bullying while increasing the students' preparedness to learn, but it's not included free of charge. So in conclusion, we urge the legislators to consider the profound impact of continuing the breakfast at no charge, reduce price lunches at no charge, and funding for CEP breakfast, as it directly contributes to the well-being and educational experience of our children. Thank you.
Good morning. Oh, let me a little closer. Good morning, honorable members and of the Connecticut Appropriations Committee. My name is Randall Mell, and I am the Child Nutrition Director for Middletown Public Schools, and I also serve on the Executive Board of the School Nutrition Association of Connecticut. Middletown Public Schools actively participates in the community eligibility provision. And under the community eligibility provision, we have been providing free meals to all students in Middletown, ensuring students have access to nutrition food regardless of their socioeconomic status. I speak to you today in support of Bill 5501, an act concerning funding for student meals. As someone deeply invested in the well-being of our students and the community, I urge you to consider the critical importance of this bill. Middletown, like many areas across our state, face significant challenges regarding food insecurity. According to our Middlesex County Health Needs Assessment conducted by Middlesex Health in 2022 and 2023, over 60% of county residents are seeking assistance in obtaining nutritious foods. Within Middletown itself, our population consists of over 60% students of color. As a Latino American who was born in Hartford, Connecticut, raised in New Britain, Connecticut, I'm acutely aware of the disparities faced by marginalized communities in accessing basic necessities such as nutritious foods. In 2022, Middletown took the courageous and equitable step by transitioning to the community eligibility provision. While this move has had a positive impact on our students' learning outcomes and food security, it is crucial to note that we are currently funded at only 77% of the federal funding rate. This shortfall severely limits our ability to continue free meals to all students. Similarly, many other districts in the state of Connecticut are facing the same challenge, having taken the equitable stance for marginalized students, but lacking the full funding to do so. Some of these districts include towns and cities like Norwalk, Hamden, Vernon, and many others. Throughout these firsthand accounts shed light on the challenging situations many of our students, parents, staff face and underscore the critical role that school meals play in their lives. Passing this bill is not just a matter of financial support, it is an investment in the future of our communities. With adequate funding, several districts risk reverting to a system where families are burdened with the cost of school meals. For families, this could save an amount of over $1,200 per child per school year, a cost that is simply unaffordable for so many. I urge you to review the testimonials and consider the profound impact that passing this bill will have on students across our state. By supporting funding for student meals, we are taking a significant step towards addressing food insecurity and promoting equity in education. Thank you for your support.
Good morning, members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Samantha Wilson, and I am the Child Nutrition Program Director for New London Public Schools. I'm speaking today to urge your strong support for continuing no-cost school breakfast and making CEP districts whole for breakfast. As the Food Service Director of a program that is fully funded through the Community Eligibility Program, my district serves as an example of the transformative impact of adequate funding that can have on the quality of meals that we provide to our students. No-cost meals for our students has enabled us to offer high-quality, scratch-made foods, setting a new standard for school meals in New London. With this funding, we have been able to invest in whole, minimally processed ingredients, allocate resources towards staff labor, and incorporate farm-to-school products into our menus. A favorite meal in New London is a slow-roasted Puerto Rican pork shoulder called pernil with arroz con condules and roasted plantains. I'd also like to highlight that pork for the dish is locally sourced from Seccarelli Farm in Waterford. Students feel a sense of belonging and connection to community when the food that they eat at home and is grown in their surrounding communities is represented in their school, and this meal is just one example of that. Lastly, we have implemented garden and nutrition education programs that expose students to a variety of different foods and educate them about the importance of making healthy food choices, so we can ensure that all that healthy, delicious food goes right into their bellies. Furthermore, fully funding school meal programs is a critical step forward in addressing food insecurity and promoting equity in our schools. By ensuring that all students have access to free meals regardless of their family's income, we are creating a more inclusive and supportive learning environment. This initiative not only benefits students, but also alleviates financial burdens on families and strengthens our communities as a whole. Investing school meals is an investment in the future of Connecticut. By prioritizing the health and well-being of our students today, we are laying the foundation for a healthier, more prosperous tomorrow. Together, we can all do our part to ensure that every child in Connecticut has access to the nutritious meals that they need to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. So, you're all working at different school systems, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to rattle through some numbers because I wasn't going to do this to the young people that were here before. So the Plainfield school system has $1,369,333 for ARP ESSER funds that must be allocated by September or the funding will go away. The Middletown school system has $1,475,347 dollars and 42 cents. I don't know how they had 42 cents, but the Norwalk school system has $2,026,322. And New London, Samantha, has $10,659,878.34. Now, these are numbers that we received from the State Department of Education through the administration, who touted the non-spending of this money as a reason why they had a policy change on education funding. We want to make sure that when you go back, that you're saying to your school system, if you have not spent this money by September 1st, or allocated the money by September 1st, it will be returned to the federal government. If you have no place for this money to go, it should go into the school meal program as a way to foster funding for this. This is something that is an appropriate expense, and this is a way for us to get the information back to the school systems. So we would ask that you would please consider spending this money, and in conjunction with your boards of ed, making sure the money is allocated. Again, if it is not allocated by September, you will lose the money unless you have asked for an increase, unless you ask for an extension. Representative Dathan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for your testimony today. It was really helpful. I know a lot of districts don't let students graduate who have student debt. Is that true in any of the districts that you work in?
So on behalf of myself, Ms. Kress and Ms. Wilson, so our districts being CEP, we do not have any meal debt. All the students do receive meals for free, but they are not equitably funded. And on the matter of ARP ESSER, so for the districts that are participating in CEP, these are federally funded programs, so you cannot subsidize a federally funded program with federal funds from ARP ESSER. So with that in mind, that is where some of the gap is coming from. But for districts such as Ms. Carl's, she may be able to speak a little bit more on that.
So Representative Walker and I have been going back and forth on the ARP ESSER and also on the delta that the CEP towns don't get that fully fund their programs. So we've looked at that because and we're not saying that we're going to have the resources to do this year, but we have talked about the policy of it. And the policy of it, we recognize that the CEP towns are not funded to cover the total cost of the food program. So we want to make sure that we're addressing that issue also. Representative Walker, anybody else? Representative Dathan?
Thank you very much. And thank you for bringing that issue to our attention. And Jill, it's nice to see you from Norwalk. One question I do have is, I worked in my children's lunch, making sure that kids were behaving in their elementary school when they were younger. And one thing I saw a lot of was waste. And one of my concerns is waste, because with some of these programs, you might have, certain things that kids like and things that kids don't like. Are there any programs set up with your school districts that deal with food waste, organic matter waste, so that those don't end up in our landfills?
Yes, Norwalk Public Schools is currently utilizing four of our schools are composting right now. We've teamed up with two of our composting, two composting companies that are, have given us grant funding in order to train staff on how to compost, what gets composted, and we're moving forward, hopefully, to do more of that in the future and more schools in the future. And we do also have dish machines that we're putting into the schools where we're using reusable trays, so we don't have to order the compostable trays to be thrown out as well. So, and also, sorry.
So I would also like to speak to that question. Again, as a district that's fully funded by CEP, so there is no CEP gap in New London. I spoke about the extra funding that enables us to do a number of different things in our program. So the first thing that we do with our food waste, we have a partnership with that pig farm that I mentioned, Secarelli Farm in Waterford. We separate all of our food that's prepared in the kitchen, so scraps from ends of pineapple, melon, things like that. And the students separate their trash into what we call a pig bucket, and the farmer comes and he picks it up and he uses that for feed for the pigs. So it's not only a way to, start to teach students about sustainability, it's also a way to actually bring the tonnage cost down in New London and, other districts that do this for what they're paying to inevitably ship off and send to the garbage. Another thing I'd like to highlight is that we are a program that offers a lot of different options for kids. So it kind of goes to this food waste. If you only offer them one or two different options, then of course you're discounting or you're disqualifying kids because they might not like the sandwich that you're offering in the hot entree. So with a fully funded district, we are able to offer 3 different varieties of sandwiches, 1 different salad, and a hot lunch every single day, alongside a variety of different fruit, fresh cut fruit, whole fruit, apple slices for little kids who, might not be able to eat into a whole apple. So those are all things that we are able to do through a fully funded program.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Walker.
Thank you. And I just want to follow up. You said that Mel, I think. You said that the ARPA funds could not be used to cover the CEP.
Yes, so the USDA has very strict regulations in relation to their federal fund and how the federal funds can be used and how federal funds can be subsidized. So we can definitely look more into it. But from my understanding from my director of grants is that the ARP ESSER funds could not be used to subsidize a food service program. But this is definitely something we can look a little bit deeper into.
I know that you cannot supplant.
Correct.
This would not be considered supplanting though.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm scurrying around trying to find the
Yes,
rules, but I couldn't find it because I think that's something that that's also why we're talking about it, is that we have immediate dollars right now. We don't have the ability to give you all the funding that you would need. You have the ability to utilize the ARPA funds that you have now for this. So
Right.
we see the importance, but you also have some funding there. So that's probably why. Okay.
Right. And just in speaking on my district, the money is all allocated. It's in the process, of course, with the budget committees and the joint between the Common Council and the city, but all of that is allocated already for
Okay.
us personally.
Okay. All right. Good. Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative McCarty.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just was curious, since we're doing more and more with the farm to school program, and as the products and the quality of the food is increasing, are you seeing less and less waste as you mentioned? And I'd like a shout out to Secarelli Farm in Waterford. I would imagine that using those local products are really cutting down on the waste. If you would just like to comment on that.
Yes, I can absolutely speak to that. So there is 100% a quality difference between produce that we're getting directly from a farm and produce that we're getting from, a broadline vendor. Broccoli, for example, we source broccoli from a farm in Colchester presently, and our staff, our students, everybody's commenting about how nice it is and how bright it is and how hearty it is. So another thing that we get, another shout out to a Waterford farm, is Huntsbrook Farm in Quaker Hill. And we, over the years, have gotten lettuce from him. And the same thing, you hear from students, you hear from staff, adults, everybody, that the quality is so much nicer. And so not only are we just trying to put food in kids' bellies, but we're trying to educate them. And there's a number of different ways to do that. You can educate them through just the foods that you're serving them, and they're seeing something that's brighter, fresher, nicer on the plate, but you can also talk to them about the importance and where these things are coming from. And so the consumption is much higher over the years as you continue to invest in these programs and you continue to see students eat these and are exposed to them.
Thank you for all of your work. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, you're all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Administrator, you have a phone number that you would like to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We have a phone number in the queue, area code 203-994-1373. We're going to give, I'm sorry, 76. Thank you. We're going to give you permission to speak. Could you please identify yourself?
Hello?
Okay, we're asking the phone number 203-994-1376 to please unmute yourself and to identify who you are so we can properly name you and put you in the queue.
We'll try later.
We'll try again later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Administrator. Next, we'll have Michael Gualtieri. Michael?
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
Okay. Senator Olson, Rep. Walker, and distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee, thank you for the opportunity to offer testimony on House Bill 5510 regarding free school lunches. For the following, I will give my information of why I oppose this bill. My main two questions when reflecting and thinking about this is, what is the role of government in society? And what is free in life throughout society? And let me focus on that question, the second question first. Of course, we know nothing is free. We either pay for the food, pay for the workers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So who's covering that? Of course, it's taxes for us and all the people in the state of Connecticut. And I wonder, wow, it's a great noble cause to have free lunches, and no one will argue with that. And I support that. And I support all the kids being full and never going hungry. I wonder, what are we teaching our kids at such a young age when they have tough times to say, oh, you know what, the government's going to bail me out. I'm going to get a free lunch, and I'll go on from there. And I think it's a real slippery slope we're going with, not only with cost, but also mindset with kids at a young age. And I think the thought process should be to the parents, why are they falling in this situation? Why are they having such hard times? Why can't the parents cover the cost for their own children? And I would really support looking into education in that route and that way over just kind of bailing the parents out and saying, oh, you get free lunch, you get whatever you want at schools. It's a huge cost to the taxpayers. And there's a better way to look at the true root of the problem. And that's why either A, parents can't afford it, or why are parents having kids when they can't afford to have kids, and thus offer them lunch and pay for their cost of free lunch. So I also don't think, we should tell these kids to rely on government and to show them that their parents are relying on government just to get free lunch for their kids. That brings me to my second question about what is the role of government in society. And this points to a bigger picture. We should have a small government and let people be in charge of themselves and personal responsibility and lower taxes. You look at Connecticut, such a high tax state. And I'm 38 years old, and I've never seen businesses come here or grow here in this state. And a big part of that is because of high taxes, because of programs like this. While very noble, don't get me wrong, I support it, are just the too cost intensive. And the role of that cost should be with the family unit and the parents, and not the role of government and the local level and the school process. So I think it's a really good opportunity to teach kids at a young age that, take control of your life, be in charge of yourself. Don't rely on the government, and you can pay for your lunch and you'll be great, and you're going to have a great life. So thank you so much for the time.
Thank you for your testimony. And I guess we all have different definitions of what the role of government is, and we will make sure that everybody has the opportunity to express themselves. So thank you for your expression. Thank you and have a good day. Bye-bye. Next,
you.
we have Michael Van Liedendern. Please help me with your last name. Michael? Michael Vladerin?
Yes.
Michael?
Representative Walker, distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee, my name is Mike Van Vlanderen. I'm here to speak to Senate Bill 374. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Reliance Health in Southeastern Connecticut. We serve all of Eastern Connecticut. You heard a few minutes ago from our CEO, Carrie Dyer. As she explained, we are a relatively decent-sized agency with 250 staff, serving over 1,500 individuals throughout Eastern Connecticut. And we have funding from both Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and DDS, among other things. And a few years ago, there was a situation where DDS was funded a little more richly than the DMIS side of things. And the unintended consequence of that was that it forced nonprofits to create a disparate pay structure for people doing the same work, whether you were funded in a DMIS program or a DDS program. So Bill 374, while well-intended, and I completely agree with the statement of purpose of what it was meant to do, I think how it's worded, rather than do that, creates an opportunity for the Commissioner of Mental Health to basically dictate how nonprofits will utilize their funds. And I gather that was not the intention, as Senator Austin alluded to earlier. So I would be in favor of the bill if that language were made a little clearer. And I can tell you that if you give money to nonprofits, we give it to our staff as much as we can, because we are so far behind. And we do it to the detriment of some of our physical structures, which are falling apart. Carrie Dyer also raised a good issue about tying something like this to other things that are happening, including indexing funds and just overall ensuring that nonprofits are properly funded year in and year out. As most of you know, sitting on the Appropriations Committee, nonprofits are so far behind at this point that we are really playing catch up. So we appreciate the thought of this bill, and I'm sure you'll work on the language too, however it gets out of committee. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you for, could you say your last name for me? Please?
Van Vlanderen.
Van Vlanderen.
Van Vlanderen.
Okay, thank you.
You've actually, I've actually been in front of Appropriations a few times, and you've actually nailed it once a few years ago. I was disheartened that you didn't get it this time.
Well, I got to keep trying, keep testifying in front of us. That makes it better. But thank you for your testimony, and we agree with you that there was a it wasn't misguided. What we were trying to do is work at that time with some concerns in the Department of Developmental Services. But as you remember, when I first started here a long time ago, the push was that we could do services with the community through nonprofits. So it was supposed to be equitably divvied out, and the agencies were going to oversee them, but the services were going to be, you were going to be the delivery system. And we have not kept up with what we said we were going to do in the beginning. And it's very important that we try and make it as equitable as possible, because you are the first delivery, really. The agencies are not seen, but you are, and your programs and the nonprofits. If we don't have you guys, I don't know how we would serve this division of government that we all want to have, because we pay taxes for it also. I think it's important that we understand that's what government is supposed to do. So thank you.
I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate your historic perspective. What I've learned over the last, especially this year, is that as new members come on,
Yeah.
as senators and representatives, they don't have the historic perspective, even back into, 2007 when there were, when funding sort of stopped for nonprofits in terms of increases. And in 2017, when there was a 5% cut.
Yep.
And that was, as we've testified in various committees, that was news to some of the representatives and senators. So,
That's the tragedy of having there's such turnover, because you do lose the historic, and that's why some of us old people, we have to keep reminding people about where we came from and where we should be going, and we just have to keep reminding people
Yeah.
for it. So, but thank you, and thank you for your service, and thank you for your testimony.
thank you.
Are you going to mention everything? Go ahead. Okay.
Just so I completely understand, so I think your testimony, and I'll go back and look at it, it's to really bring parity between the two departments from DEMIS and DD for the same type of work that's being done. Is that the goal of what you're saying?
Yeah, so what happened, and it's across any department, so there are nonprofits that get funding from different state agencies, be it, in this case, in our case, it's DEMIS and DDS. And a few years ago, if the numbers, if I remember the numbers, something like an additional $50 million was put into the DDS side, and that was to do with, a variety of causes and things. And that DDS funded agencies were instructed to create a baseline wage for direct care staff. DEMIS did not get that additional funding, so we could not. And as an agency, we actually made the decision to try and at least get some additional funding. So we shifted money around within our agency to get the DEMIS folks that are funded through DEMIS funds up a little bit. But we had a whole year where folks working in DDS programs were making more than folks funded in DEMIS programs until the next year came around, and we were able to lift that up. So to answer your question, yes, we are looking for parity, but hopefully through common sense funding and increased funding for nonprofits, as opposed to dictating commissioners to insist that nonprofits pay their staff a certain wage, which we would absolutely do, but we can't do if we don't have the resources.
Right, and I think we, if I may, I think we
Yeah.
hear what you're saying loud and clear, and I would imagine it's important, you want to retain those professionals that you have working, and so it's a balance.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you, but I think we're looking for parity for all nonprofits. I don't think we want to limit it to just DDS and DEMIS. I think we want to.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So we have to be careful, because
Yeah.
we'll end up having the same problem where
Oh.
other agencies won't have it. So the whole point is to try and
Right.
be more equitable about how we support our nonprofits and make sure that we're doing it for everybody.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next, we have Rhonda Evans and William Rising. I didn't try the last name. Hi, guys. You brought the crew with you, huh?
Good morning.
Good morning. Go right ahead.
Good morning, distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Rhonda Evans, and I'm with the Connecticut Association for Community Action, here to provide testimony in regards to Senate Bill 374. Thank you for this opportunity to testify today. The Connecticut Association for Community Action is a state association that works with Connecticut's 9 community action agencies, who are the federally and state designated anti-poverty agencies, who provide a wide array of services to almost 200,000 residents of low and moderate incomes across the state of Connecticut in each of the 169 cities and towns. We appreciate the opportunity to testify in regards to Senate Bill 374, and we do support the bill, but with 2 proposed changes to the bill. Initially, we asked that you would include language to increase state-funded payment rates for all nonprofit providers who contract across every state agency, not just the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and the Department of Developmental Services. Community action agencies provide a wide array of services, essential health and human services, to some of Connecticut's most vulnerable individuals. However, like other nonprofit providers, payment rates don't match the provisions of services. And despite some improvements and increases in rates over time, there's still too many that haven't been adjusted. And the service requirements, reporting, and tracking expectations have only increased, even with the reduction or the flat funding. Also, stagnant funding, program cuts, and low salaries continue to contribute to employee turnover rates and staff shortages, leaving nonprofits without adequate coverage and result in the service delivery delays. Therefore, it's crucial, I can't, that the state increase payment rates to nonprofit service providers to help to ensure that they can operate efficiently and effectively while also serving customers. And secondly, our other proposed change would be to include some proposed amendment language that we've provided in our testimony that examines ways to streamline, expedite, and improve the current state contracting process and the associated payment process that can create more process efficiencies. The current system that we have in place is wrought with inefficient processes that result in contract delays, which then cause delays in payments to the contractors who are providing these valuable services on the behalf of the state of Connecticut. And when contracts are issued late, it puts organizations in jeopardy of being able to continue to provide the services to residents. And these long-standing systemic process across many state agencies and further burden nonprofits by forcing them to float the cost of programs for the state by tapping into lines of credit or reserves to ensure that the continuity of services. Currently, the community action agencies across the state have multiple contracts that have been pending execution, some since before the beginning of the fiscal year. And in most cases, they've continued to provide the services, though they have not yet been paid. This is unsustainable and threatens both the availability of essential services to vulnerable Connecticut residents, as well as the fiscal well-being of nonprofit service providers who are providing these vital services. On behalf of Connecticut's Community Action Network, I urge you to support Senate Bill 374 with our suggested changes. And thank you for considering our concerns. And I'm going to then turn it over to Bill.
You have a whole statement to read too, sir?
Yes, I do.
Abbreviated?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you, co-chairs, distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is William Ribzik. I am the president of New Opportunities, Inc. We are the community action agency for Greater Waterbury, Greater Meriden, Greater Torrington. We have over 50 programs that we operate and serve over 60,000 individuals on an annual basis. And what I want to add to is really emphasize the streamlining of the contracting process and the impact that has. When you have delays in contracts for services like an emergency shelter for the homeless, for homebound meal delivery to homebound seniors, for early childhood education centers, for client basic need funds, these are things that have to continue to operate, regardless if a contract has not been received, regardless of a payment has not been received. We do not have the option to shut down those kind of services, especially in the environment that we're in now. All of our agencies, all the 9 community action agencies, continue to see more and more people on an annual basis. You know, we've seen unprecedented levels in fuel assistance, and we continue to provide these services because we have to. Our staff are out there, some of the most dedicated people that you will ever meet. And yet these delays, when you're having to carry costs for 60 days, 120 days, 180 days, my agency and A number of our other partner agencies are carrying costs in the seven figures while we're waiting for documents to be signed. And it's just not a sustainable practice, as my colleague talked about. And yet we are right there on the front lines and need to be out there serving the most vulnerable in our communities. So thank you very much. And we appreciate the added language for SB 374.
Well, thank you, sir, and thank you very much, both of you, for your testimony. You'll find a friend in appropriations. Almost every appropriation member has related with the community action agencies for one way or another, because you guys have really provide a direct service. I'll give another history. Commissioner Coker developed this back in the, I think, early 2000s, so that we could get services out to people quicker and more direct, because people felt they would be able to communicate with people that they knew from their community. And it helped make sure that people were not alienating themselves from opportunity. The only problem we have is now we have the system is paid for through another agency, which you're now experiencing. We have to improve. And I want you to understand, it's not just your agency that's feeling the pain of the poor contracting system in the state. Everybody seems to be having the same problems. We need to do a better job. We need to make sure that the money flows, that you do not, as a nonprofit, have extra dollars in your bank account to hold you over. You're not supposed to. That's what a nonprofit does. So we cannot redefine nonprofit in Connecticut to meet our needs. We have to make sure that we acquire the appropriate way of looking at it. So thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you for everything you do and everything you need. Representative McCarty.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I'll be very brief. But I do want to echo the same comments that you made, that it's so important our community action agencies do extraordinary work in our state and with limited funds. And we hear what you're saying about the contracting services, and I think we need to really focus on that going forward. And I appreciate your remarks, and my executive director is here from TVCCA, and I wanted to just recognize him and the great work that TVCCA does. Thank you for the personal privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. And all of the members from Community Action Agency do a fantastic job. And all I see my community action agency, who's around the corner from me, who's got me on speed dial. You guys do a great job. And the thing that really, when people come into your office, they feel safe. And that is the most important thing, because it's very hard to say, I need. And you give people the room to be able to say, I need, please help me. And not because they're looking for dependency. They want independence. They just don't know how to do it. So thank you for everything you do. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Next, we have Adam Bomash.
Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to speak. Senator Ostin, Representative Walker, Senator Berthel, Representative Nuccio, and esteemed members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Adam Bolmash, and I'm a graduate student of the UConn School of Social Work from Hartford. Maintaining school breakfast and meals for students who qualify for reduced price meals in the budget is very important to me. All our kids need the tools to do their best in school, and breakfast is the best way to ensure they start their day right. I support HB 5510, an act concerning funding for school meals. Hungry kids don't learn. All the research supports this statement. Hungry children are not fully prepared to learn, which makes disruptions to classrooms more likely. I'm sure we can all speak to the difficulty of having to concentrate when you're hangry. Research shows us that when meals are offered at no cost at school to everyone, there is less absenteeism and less bullying, and kids are more prepared to learn. Even students who eat something at home and get a school breakfast perform better on tests. There's a reason that schools offer breakfast to their students during testing days. I support this legislation because helping children eat at school is just common sense. Setting aside the simple moral fact that no child should go hungry simply because their parents lack the resources or means to feed them in school, there's every economic, educational, social, and psychological reason to help children eat. Allowing eligible students to have meals at no cost is a game changer for them and their families. School meals make a difference to students, their families, and school community. Please ensure our kids have the tools to build their success. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your testimony. Have a good day. Thank you. Next, Diana Chacon. Diana?
Good morning, esteemed members of the Appropriation Committee. My name is Diana Chacon, and I'm here today to voice my strong support for HB 5510, an act concerning fund for student meals. HB 5510 is a crucial piece of legislation that addresses a fundamental issue affecting our students, access to nutritious meals. As a community member, I have seen firsthand the impact of hunger on students' ability to learn and succeed in school. Many students in our state come from low-income families that struggle to afford regular nutritious meals. For these students, school meals are often their only reliable source of food. However, the current funding levels for student meals need to be improved, leading to gaps in access and quality. HB 5510 seeks to address this issue by increasing funds for student meals, ensuring that every student has access to healthy and nutritious food. By investing in their student well-being, we are investing in their academic success and future prospects. Access to nutritious meals is not just a matter of food security, but it's also a matter of equity. All students, regardless of their background or economic status, deserves access to the resources they need to thrive. HB 5510 is a step in the right direction towards ensuring that every student in our state has the opportunity to succeed. I urge the committee to support HB 5510 and prioritize the well-being of our students. By doing so, we can profoundly impact the lives of countless children and set them on a path to a brighter future. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony, and go Huskies. Next, we have Jennifer Chad. I'm not pronouncing the last name.
Thank you so much, Representative Walker. It's Jennifer Chidukowicz here from SCAD, Southeastern Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence. I want to thank the esteemed chair people, Representative Walker, Senator Austin, and I think I've captured everybody around the table. I've been watching. I believe I want to thank Representatives Dathan, DiCaprio, Nolan, Senator Marks, Representative McCarty, Exum, Kana, and Porter. I think I got everyone. Definitely have some local friendly faces there today, and I'm grateful. So
We just want to hear from you.
yeah, great. I am here to testify in favor of House Bill 5511. And I'm wearing kind of two hats today. So I'm Chief Strategy Officer at SCAD, but I'm also a woman in long-term recovery and have had the opportunity to provide executive leadership for a substance use disorder treatment program here in Southeastern Connecticut. We employ 200 individuals. We serve over 3,500 individuals a year. And we're in favor of expanding the attendance and membership of the OSAC committee as it's laid out here in House Bill 5511, mainly because I'm a sailor. So I use metaphors a lot. And if you design a boat, it's great. It's fantastic. You need engineers and you need builders. But if you want to sail a sailboat, you need sailors, you need navigators, you need people that know where the ports are and where to go. And when I look at the OSAC committee and the expanded membership, that's really what you're doing. You are giving an opportunity for more diverse voices at the table. I also had the great privilege of co-chairing the Alcohol and Drug Policy, Recovery and Health Management Subcommittee for 5 years. And the membership on that committee was so diverse. We had representation from medical doctors, addiction psychiatrists, people in the community, recovery navigators. It was a beautiful mixture of messages and voices at the table, and we got a lot done. It was a really exciting time. And one of the things that I will stand by as a woman that is in long-term recovery in large part because I went to a treatment program just like the treatment program SCAD has. It was a long-term treatment program, and I am still in recovery today, 35 years later. I'm very grateful for that. But one of the things that was important was that intersection of medicine and mystery. And in order to do that, you need to have all the voices at the table. So I want to thank my colleagues at Reliance Health for testifying. I want to echo their comments on Senate Bill 374, but I'm here to talk and make sure that we emphasize that we are in support of the expansion of this subcommittee. Do you have any questions?
No, but thank you. Thank you very much. And I think that it's really important that we do have people who have experienced it also to have voices, and those who have worked with those people who have experienced it. I know it's pretty much has mostly municipal, and I think municipal is important.
Yep.
In trying to determine the types of services that we want to provide out in the community, I think it's got to be people that are from the industry to help us sort of navigate that a little bit better. So thank you very much for
Absolutely.
your testimony.
Thank
Yes.
you.
One statement, hold on. All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Jennifer, for your testimony. And I look forward to the meeting tomorrow.
Yes, we
at
are
the
too.
facility there. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative DiCaprio. Thanks so much. And thank you, Representative Walker, for the historical context you laid today. And I want to thank you for bringing all of that to the table. It's such an important narrative.
Thank you. Sometimes we have good ideas. We just got to remember what good ideas we had. Okay, thank you. Next, we have Ben Shaken.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Ben Shaken. I'm the Director of Government Relations at the Connecticut Community Nonprofit Alliance. It's good to see all of you. I am here to testify on Senate Bill 374. You've already heard from some of our members and some other folks. This is the bill that would equalize rates of pay for nonprofit providers. I want to thank the committee for raising this important topic. I know there was some conversation earlier, and Senator Austin talked about the need to fix some of the language, and so that's in my testimony. I just wanted to point out, I'm sure you all know this is the Appropriations Committee after all, but in the budget that passed in June last year, community nonprofit providers of services to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities that contract with DDS, with the Department of Developmental Services. As you know, they received a higher funding increase than providers of other services in the health and human services field. The enacted budget provided $53.3 million to all providers, including DDS providers, and then added an additional $50 million reserved only for DDS contracted providers. DDS services, from a cost perspective, about half of the cost of the entire health and human services contracted system. And so what that meant was, as a result, DDS providers got a funding increase at about 7.5% last year, while all other health and human services providers got a funding increase of about 2.5%. While past years' funding increases, so there have been increases over the last several years, have been structured differently, and DDS contracted providers have received funding reserved only for wage increases. Nevertheless, each year that the legislature has provided those funding increases, DDS contracted services have received a larger dollar for dollar increase than all other services. And when I add the numbers up, and my numbers might be a little different than OFA's numbers because I'm just using an envelope and budget books over the years, what I get to is that funding for DDS contracted services since fiscal year 19 have increased by $272 million, while funding for all other health and human services agencies have increased by 126 and change million dollars. And so again, about half of the system is DDS, half is everything else. So you can see that this disparity has been something that's been happening kind of every year that the legislature has been able to fight for funding increases in the budget. As you've heard from some of my colleagues, some of our members who provide services for DDS and other state agencies at the same time, this has created a significant challenge for them in their own organizations. How do I pay a staff person that basically does the same job, just in a program that's funded by DCF or DMIS or DOC, a different amount than I need to pay someone who's funded by a DDS contract? That's why we support the intent of the bill. As folks have talked about, first of all, the bill is limited to DMIS. And so we hope it can be expanded for the other state agencies. And second of all, the bill is specific to the minimum wage in those contracts, but there's no funding in the bill behind it. And so we are concerned that the bill needs to just talk about how the legislature appropriates these funds moving forward to make sure that there's parity in that appropriation rather than by mandating the same wages across contracts like are mandated in the DDS contracted system. So my time is up. I'll also just note we are submitting testimony in support of the bill that Ms. Chudukowicz testified about earlier as well, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ben. I do appreciate your comments. I do think that that's something that had to be said out loud, that we're creating two tiers of nonprofits by not addressing this issue. And I think DDS should be funded also, but when we're not funding DMIS, DCF, and they have inadequate funding to increase wages and then have problems within their the confines of those respective agencies, we're really not, we're setting the other agencies up for failure. So I really appreciate you speaking about this. I think it's something that we have to address. And I know that Representative Walker and I are both interested in addressing the issue. So Representative Dathan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for your testimony today. Hopefully we'll get a copy of that online because I didn't see it this morning. Wanted to ask you, with the disparity here, is this causing any effects on our waiting list for services from folks that maybe one program that is better funded will receive, have smaller waiting lists, and people who are in another program have longer wait times?
It's an interesting question. It's a good question. Thank you, Representative. I think what we are seeing across the service system is the growth of waiting lists for services. And as you know well, because of your work on House Bill 5001 last year, you know, the DDS system is mandated by the legislature by statute to provide this sort of actual list to you, right? That there is a waiting list and you get reports on it every year, or every quarter, or whatever the reporting timeframe is from DDS. But there are waiting lists elsewhere in the human services system, and we hear about them from our members that they're growing, particularly in children's services. I think we are hearing right now about growing waiting lists. There are some parts of the service system where providers' contracts mandate that they don't keep a waiting list, and so they have to figure out a way to provide at least an initial level of service without putting folks on a waiting list. And so it's definitely a more complicated sort of policy question than here's a list of people who are waiting for services that I can provide you, or that state agencies could provide you. So yeah, I think we are seeing waiting lists generally growing across the state, and I think it is a result of the underfunding of the services. Providers have not been able to hire the staff that they need to hire at any of the wage levels, right? Either at the lower end of the wage scale for folks that are in direct support roles, or even in the higher end of the wage scale for folks that have master's degrees or are clinically certified or licensed. There's significant competition in the healthcare world for people who are qualified and interested in working in these services, and the market has driven the wages that those folks are able to get for the work that they do up significantly. And the state funding, while you have done incredible work in this committee and in the legislature to increase funding over the last several years, it unfortunately has been outpaced by the rate of inflation, both in terms of what the providers have to pay for the cost to deliver the services across the board, but also in particular in what the market demands for providers are able to pay in terms of wages for their staff.
That's kind of where I was thinking that this would be a difficult issue for our nonprofits. The other thing I think of is administratively, having to keep timesheets and all of these, if you are working in both, it can be a burdensome on already an industry that's pressed for resources. So thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other comments? Seeing none, you're all set, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Jennifer Zarilli.
Hi, thank you. Thank you to the Appropriations Committee for allowing me to testify. I'm here to support HB 5510, an act concerning funding for school meals. I am the food service director for Wolcott and Thomaston schools, and today I'm also representing the Connecticut Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics to express our support as a group for this bill. Continued funding of the minimum school breakfast and CU programs to be fully funded for the cost of school breakfast. This is a key step in providing equitable access to nutrition and decreasing social injustice throughout our state. The Connecticut Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics represents nutrition professionals across the state. Our organization is the leading advocate of dietetic profession in Connecticut, serving the public through promotion of optimal nutrition, health, and well-being. Our vision is to make Connecticut a state where sustainable food systems help all people and the environment thrive through transformative power of quality, nutritious food and that's accessible to all. And personally, I've been a registered pediatric registered dietitian in Connecticut for 16 years. And I've personally seen the effects of food insecurity in my patients, leading to both malnutrition, nutrient deficiency, as well as obesity. I've recently taken on the role of a school food service director while maintaining my status as a registered dietitian to help make a further impact on improving the health and wellness of children for a lifetime. School breakfast and lunch are incredible programs. They nourish the mind and bodies of Connecticut students throughout their day for a future of success and achievement. Not only does school breakfast and lunch provide healthy options, including fresh fruits and vegetables, low-fat dairy, lean protein, and whole grains for students. For some, it could be their only food for the day. Receiving the opportunity for 2 balanced meals at school is incredibly impactful. Very rarely at home do any children have the opportunity to choose from the nutrient variety that school breakfast offers, including the opportunity to have 5 or more fruit and vegetable options per day. Studies have shown that schools are the healthiest places for children to eat, not only for their daily nutrition as they grow and thrive, but setting them up for healthy behaviors as children grow into adults. When breakfast and lunch are free for all students and encourages all students to eat more meals at school. And eating more meals at school not only help improve caloric and nutrient consumption, it could also improve nutrient intake over a lifetime. Getting more exposure to healthy foods can change students' food choices for life. Even in my own personal experience, when meals were free, it encouraged my own son to participate in the school breakfast and lunch programs. And I've seen my own extremely picky eater expand his food repertoire by trying more foods at school when he sees his friends eating them, including fruits and vegetables, drinking milk every day, and trying new healthy food choices. Furthermore, the threshold for free and reduced meals is very low to qualify. For a family of 4 to receive meal assistance, they must make under $55,000 per year. We know that families make more than this amount are still struggling and are unable to afford school meals for their children, which is heartbreaking. Many families may be hesitant to apply for free and reduced meals.
I'm sorry,
due to
Jen.
this. What's that?
Can you wrap up your testimony?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So overall, school meals help make a difference in students' life every day, positively impacting the individual student, their family, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, you're all set, Jennifer. Thank you. Jennifer, I just wanted to say one thing. I don't know if you're still on.
Yes.
I just wanted to let you know in Walcott, they still have $238,296,000 in ARP ESSER funds. So if you wouldn't mind just checking with your school system on the Walcott end. Thomaston has done a very good job of spending every dime that they have.
Okay, yes, I will check. We do have plans on spending down our funds for this year.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Up next is Jennifer Croft. Croft? Craft?
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Kraft, and I'm a cafeteria manager and a grandparent with a child in the schools in Middletown Public Schools. Every day, I encounter students who suffer food insecurities in their homes. Many students express how the meals they receive at school are sometimes the only meals they eat all day. Our student population consists of over 60% of students whose families receive some form of governmental assistance, whether it be food, housing, healthcare, or other services. As a school district, we serve all students free breakfast and lunch at no charge through the community eligibility provisions, but we are not fully funded by the federal reimbursement. We want all of our students to succeed, but how can they succeed in their studies if all they are thinking about is when and how they are going to get their next meal? This leads to bigger problems with their ability to get proper education and ultimately succeed as global citizens. Food insecurity is a very real problem, and it is only going to get worse with the rising prices of food, leaving some parents to make difficult decisions between paying rent or utilities and putting food on the table. At one point in my life, I was a single parent, and sometimes I made just over the limit. So I would be considered Alice. Everybody's talking about Alice, okay? I left a domestic violence situation and I raised my kids on my own. I made just over the limit to provide, to receive any kind of assistance. And sometimes I would personally have to make a decision on whether to pay a utility bill or whether to pay my rent or whether to pay for my children to eat. There were times, I know the gentleman earlier talked about, there were times when my kids, I would have to, you choose non-healthy decisions, you make non-healthy decisions for your kids. So it's easier to go into a supermarket and to buy a package of Uncrustables or something. That's not very healthy, but that's all you can afford. I had 3 children, so that's all I could afford. So sometimes they would go to lunch because I couldn't afford to buy them lunch with an Uncrustable and maybe a package of donuts that were 3 for $1, because those are the choices you make when that's all you have. You can't afford to buy the fruit. You can't afford to buy the vegetables that we provide every day to our students. Every day, the kids come in my school, I'm sorry. I see these kids come in and they don't have the fresh vegetables and the fruit that we provide. In my school, they get a choice of 5 or 6 vegetables every day, 5 or 6 fruits every day. And these kids, they pile them on. When somebody spoke about strawberries earlier, the days that we have strawberries, you would think that we're giving these kids gold because it's stuff that they don't get at home and they're so excited. Just recently, I had a student come to me one morning at breakfast and express how their stomach was upset and they had a headache because they hadn't eaten much since the day before at lunch. Because things at Tight were home and they had no food. In another instance, I have a student who piles his plate every day with fresh vegetables. We do offer versus serve, so our children have big selections, but they can take as many fruits and vegetables as they want. And this child every day will have a pile of fruit and vegetables because he's not going to get a lot when he goes home, especially towards the end of the month when they're waiting for their SNAP benefits to come through. And sometimes that's what he takes home to eat. And then just recently, while working on the register, a transfer student told me how lucky she felt to get free meals every day now, because in their old district, she had to pay, and her parents didn't always have the money to pay for school lunch or other resources to send her with the
Jennifer,
lunch.
can you wrap up your testimony, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just real quick, recently I was speaking to a colleague of ours, of mine. We serve free lunches every day. A few years ago, we didn't, and she spoke about how sad it was to sit there and see these kids come in and not have a meal and have to watch the other kids. They sit in the same cafeteria at the same tables, and they have students with them that are not eating meals, that don't have resources to have meals. And you know.
I know,
I'm
it's
very
emotional.
passionate. I'm sorry.
I know, I know. So I would just say, Jennifer, that in Middletown, there's, in our BESAR, $1,475,347.42. So, you should ask them if they have any additional dollars there, to put into the food program. Making sure that they're spending all their ARPESR funds.
I absolutely understand. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Are there any comments or questions? No, thank you, Jennifer. You did a nice job.
Thank you.
Up next is Joelle Santiago.
Greetings. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Dr. Joelle Santiago. I am a licensed chiropractic physician practicing in Connecticut, and I also serve as legislative chair for the Connecticut Chiropractic Association. I am representing them today to make brief comments on House Bill 5511, an act expanding the membership of the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee and making the Legislative Commissioner's Office recommended technical revisions. We commend you for considering legislation that will expand the membership of the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee as is provided in Section 1. We have an additional suggestion in regard to this that I will outline in a moment. Members of the committee, I think one aspect of the opioid problem has been overlooked or at least not adequately discussed, and that is how can we get the word out to the public that if they are suffering serious pain, there are alternatives to simply taking opioids. As you know, pain is a major driver of opioid use. However, there are non-pharmacological interventions that currently exist that successfully reduce pain so that a patient can be healthy once again. Injuries to the neck, to the spine, or to the lower back are common. In the US, the cost of spine-related pain is estimated to be $134.5 billion annually. Evidence shows that when patients with spine-related musculoskeletal pain see a chiropractic physician first, the need of fewer prescriptions, surgeries, hospitalizations, or injections declines. My ask is that you encourage the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee to put the issue of non-pharmacological pain interventions on their agenda and have a robust discussion about it. You can do that by adding 2 representatives to the Committee of Medical Professionals that provide non-pharmacological pain intervention. We support the additions now in the bill that include providers of services such as detoxification, substance abuse treatment, and recovery communities. Adding 2 representatives that provide non-pharmacological treatment of pain will help place the issue squarely on the committee's agenda for discussion and action. Thank you for considering the views of the Connecticut Chiropractic Association.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, thanks so much. Up next is Rebecca Allen. Rebecca Allen here.
Good morning, Senator Austin, Representative Walker, and esteemed members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Rebecca Allen, and I'm a registered voter in the town of Columbia. I'm also a woman in long-term recovery from a severe heroin addiction. I'm here today to express my enthusiastic support for the expansion of the Opioid Settlement Committee proposed in HB 5511 to include a representative from a recovery community center and a recovery coach. As someone deeply invested in addressing the opioid crisis, I believe this expansion is crucial for ensuring that those closest to the issue are empowered to be part of the solution. I want to make the following key points in support of this expansion. Number 1, proximity to the issue. Representatives from recovery community centers and those serving as recovery coaches are on the front lines of the opioid crisis. They witness firsthand the devastating effects of addiction on individuals, families, and communities. Their unique perspectives and experience provide valuable insight into the most effective ways to allocate resources and support recovery efforts. Number 2, personal experience. Many of those working in recovery community centers and as recovery coaches have been personally affected by the opioid crisis. Whether they are in recovery themselves or have witnessed the struggles of loved ones, they bring a level of empathy and understanding that is essential for developing compassionate and effective solutions. Number 3, community representation, including individuals from the recovery community on the settlement committee ensures that the voices of those directly impacted by the opioid crisis are heard. These individuals can advocate for funding and resources to support programs and initiatives that are most urgently needed within their communities, helping to address local priorities and disparities. Number 4, boots on the ground perspective. Recovery community centers and recovery coaches are often the first point of contact for individuals seeking help for their substance use disorders. They have a deep understanding of the challenges faced by individuals in recovery and the barriers they encounter in accessing treatment and support services. Their insights can inform the development of policies and programs that are responsive to the needs of the people they serve. In conclusion, expanding the opioid settlement committee to include a representative from a recovery community center and a recovery coach is a way to ensure that our response to the opioid crisis is informed by those with firsthand expertise and knowledge. Their perspectives are invaluable for developing comprehensive and effective strategies to prevent addiction, support recovery, and save lives. Thank you for considering my testimony in support of House Bill 5511. I urge you to prioritize this important expansion for the benefit of our communities and those affected by the opioid crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much for testifying. This is exactly what we wanted to hear on this bill so that we could get the information from folks. And we felt that this voice was lacking. Representative Walker's been talking about this all session. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Have a nice day. Up next is Susan Lagarde.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Senator Austin, Representative Walker, and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Dr. Suzanne Lagarde. I serve as the CEO of Fairhaven Community Healthcare in New Haven. We serve over 34,000 unique individuals annually, providing primary care, dental, behavioral health, and substance misuse services. I'm here today in strong support of HB 5511. My comments today are brief. We are all only too aware of the horrific problem our communities face due to opioid overdoses and deaths. In 2023, 1,329 of our Connecticut residents died from an overdose, and 168 of those were in my town of New Haven alone. From my office on Grand Avenue, I watch drug deals taking place routinely, and sadly, I also see individuals in our parking lot, behind our bushes, and even on the sidewalks abusing drugs. This is a huge problem, and we need to do everything in our power to help these individuals afflicted with this scourge. As a result of the multi-state opioid settlement, the state of Connecticut is slated to receive hundreds of millions of dollars over the coming years. It's our responsibility to ensure that these funds are used wisely to help our neighbors suffering with this affliction and to help mitigate the problem over the coming decade. HB 5511 will add to the composition of the committee that is charged with making recommendations on how these funds should be allocated. HB 5511 allows for the addition of individuals with lived experience, as we've just heard, as well as of healthcare providers with extensive experience in the treatment of addiction. These voices are critically important, and I applaud this change. I note that there was an attempt to change the composition of the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee last year, and at the last moment, this language was removed. I'm not privy to the why for this action, but I ask that you not repeat this again. Rather, continue with the current plan to augment the collective voice of the committee with the addition of clinical expertise. This will be a plus for the citizens of Connecticut. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan, and thank you for your testimony. And last year it didn't originate in appropriations, so we like that. This appropriations seems to go through all of their details very carefully. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have Erica Nowakowski and Ashwana. Ash. I just call it Ash, okay? Ash.
Thank you. Good afternoon now. Good lunch period. Representative Walker, Senator Austin, and esteemed members of the committee. My name is Erica Nowakowski. I'm Executive Director of the Tau Youth Justice Institute at the University of New Haven. We are the administrators of the Transforming Youth Justice, the Transforming Children's Behavioral Health Committee, formerly, or it's originally currently called TCB. We are here to make a request to add an expansion of House Bill 5511 and to include the TCB into this committee, into this bill, excuse me. We have some minor technical changes to add. Those changes are consistent with what was passed in Public Act 2390. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, the committee was not able to meet some of its deliverables. And so we are here asking to make some additions to this bill. And some of those changes and amendments consist of the following. Adding or expanding the membership representation to include the Connecticut tribal community, amending the delivery dates of several of the reports that were identified in the previous bill that formed this committee. Those reports consist of a strategic plan, a service gap analysis, as well as amending the language and amending the due date for a framework and recommendations for quality assurance, data collection, and data integration. It is our expected goal as administrators of this committee that we would meet the new deadline set forth. I'm happy to announce that the committee has been meeting consistently, has done significant level setting and learning. And as of this month, the committee has begun to operationalize and activate its work groups, which is where a lot of the work is taking place and then comes back to the committee for review and approval and healthy debate and discussion. Would like to give the floor to Ash real quick.
Thank you. My name is Ash Aishwarya Srinivasan. I'm the Senior Project Manager for the TCB committee. Just to add to this, granting this extension to implement the revised changes would help us to delve deeper into understanding what are the problems that children, especially with the behavioral health side, are facing, and would inform us to put a better informed recommendation out there. Thank you.
Thank you. I like that. I like that testimony.
Short and sweet.
It was excellent. Representative Exum.
So many Tammys. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the testimony. And I would just like to say, as I am a chair of the TCB committee, and even today, as we've heard some of the testimony around healthy meals and how students are performing, we continue to hear about the behavioral health aspects of what we're seeing throughout the state. And one of the things that I can appreciate is the amount of work that is involved in doing and moving forward with this committee. And I am really proud of the beginning part of the work we're doing, but there does need to be a little bit more time in order to meet the dates and the deliverables, and understanding that what TAO has done to help us operationalize is wonderful, but we have had unforeseen circumstances arise that have pushed off some of the deliverables to this point. And I am in support of this. I think it's really important that we expand our membership in the way that we make sure we have all voices at the table. We hear about representation and lived experiences, and that's very important as well. So thank you for coming forward with this, and I'm very much in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Thank you guys for, and thank you for championing this issue, because as you see and hear, mental health amongst our children is something that has been neglected, and we need to really focus on that and provide leadership, but also a platform of trying to right set what we need to do here in Connecticut. And I think you guys do a fantastic job, especially because you do JJPOC too. So thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Next, Heather Latora. Heather Latora, is she on? Nope. Okay, moving on. Beth Fisher. Good afternoon. Go right ahead.
Good afternoon. Now it's on. My name is Beth Fisher. I'm the CEO of Kuhn Employment Opportunities. We are a nonprofit who contracts with both DDS and DMIS. And I'm here to testify on SB 374 concerning the equalizing of rates. You've heard from a lot of my colleagues today already on this, and I very much appreciate the acknowledgement that there is some need to change the language, but I will share with you a little bit about what's happened in our agency. Being an agency that employs staff to work under both DDS and DMIS contracts, we've seen this inequity in our wages, and it's really become an HR nightmare, and it's negatively impacted the staff morale in the midst of the worst staffing crisis that any of us have seen in memory. One example in our agency is that we have a position for employment specialists that help people with disabilities to get employment and stay employed. We do that for DMIS and we do that for DDS. And we were really faced with a challenge, the way that the funding came through, and I won't go through, the funding. You guys know that. You're the Appropriations Committee. Others have talked about it. But we took a look and we knew that for the sake of staff morale, we just simply could not increase employment specialists in one sector and not the other. So we had to dig deep, find money we really didn't have to make that happen, so that we had equitable wages in that role. If we were to get a big chunk of money, in the DMIS contracts, we simply could not do that because we have many more DDS staff, and we would not have the resources internally to do that equitable increase. So in that position, the education requirements are the same, but many of our positions have different educational requirements. For DDS, an entry-level position requires a high school diploma or a bachelor's degree. A high school diploma or a GED. And in DMIS, our entry-level positions require a bachelor's degree. So we can't simply match starting wages across state agencies either. What providers really need is, a straight cost of living adjustment on our contracts so that we can manage independently what's best for our staff and the quality of service delivery. We currently have a 25% vacancy rate, and we really can't afford to lose more staff over the pay inequity. So I will stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions, but do appreciate the support that this committee has provided to nonprofits.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony, and thank you for staying. Are there any questions or comments? No, thank you. Have a great day. Next, we have Thomas Burr. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Representative Walker and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Thomas Burr. I'm the Public Policy Manager for the Connecticut chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, otherwise known as NAMI Connecticut. And I'm here to testify in regards to SB 374, an act concerning equalizing rates of pay for nonprofit provider workers. The stated purpose of this bill is to equalize pay between workers who provide services through a nonprofit provider for clients of DMIS and workers who provide services of the same nonprofit provider for clients of DDS. As the country's largest grassroots mental health organization, one of our key public policy focus areas is to ensure people get the best possible care. This includes expanding access to health insurance, requiring parity coverage of mental health care, and ensuring that the right services are available at the right time. We have been hearing for far too long that one of the biggest problems that nonprofit providers of mental health care face is in regards to hiring and training adequate staffing, and that the biggest challenge in achieving that is the lack of adequate competitive pay. The person who was on just before me illustrated some of that. These workers provide dedicated, compassionate care for some of the most vulnerable people in the state and should be compensated in a commensurate fashion. SB 374 is a step in the right direction of ending this current inequity. People who provide similar services for one state agency through a nonprofit provider should earn the same level of pay as people employed by a nonprofit provider funded by a different state agency. That's only basic fairness. And while on the subject of fairness, we believe that the state of Connecticut should increase and equalize state-funded payment rates for all nonprofit providers who contract across every state agency, not just the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and DDS. Again, that is only fair. May remember some of my testimony in prior years that many workers in this space either work 2 or 3 jobs or work multiple shifts in order to make ends meet. Frankly, we're all sick and tired of hearing how the state of Connecticut has these wonderful budgetary surpluses, yet because of the fiscal guardrails, no increases can be applied to the state's network of nonprofit service providers. From our perspective, these are not fiscal guardrails. Guardrails are something that keep people safe. These are really fiscal handcuffs, and we don't feel safe. We feel that our people we serve and the people that the nonprofit providers of DEMA services serve aren't being served correctly. They're not safe. They're really at risk. And I really would appreciate this committee doing the right thing for certainly the DEMAS world, but frankly, all nonprofit providers. On a personal note, I work for an organization that does get funds from DEMAS. My wife works for a DDS provider. And my daughter, my special needs daughter, who turns 29 next month, is a recipient of DDS services from a different provider. So this is very personal to me. So appreciate anything you can do in this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for your comments and thank you for testifying. And thank you for also saying what you feel about what you hear. Sometimes we don't always hear what people are here. We don't always get the feedback from a lot of the community about certain things. And I appreciate your description of fiscal guardrails.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Lucy?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for your testimony and all your advocacy. This is so important. We hear day in and day out from our constituents and what's going on in our world. The real need for services for people with mental health and addiction issues. There is a lack of providers. And in my opinion, this bill would actually help improve that so that we can improve the number of providers so folks aren't on a wait list. I know we've recently had, hearing a lot of different stories of suicide in our area, and it is so tragic that someone feels so helpless, but without the services and the infrastructure there, these things are going by the wayside. And so we appreciate that. I also do very strong supporter of peer support services, which are, I think, as a critical need for this. And I know there is some funding that is coming through DEMAS. I'm working on the Medicaid support for that so that we can get that federal match, because I do believe that these services are so important for folks who have mental health needs, and also addiction services, whether it's necessarily substance, gambling, anything that folks do as an outlet for that. So appreciate it, and looking forward to continuing this discussion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, sir, and thank you for your testimony.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good day. Next, Lori Pasqualini. Did I try? Do I do it close? Oh, good. And
Good
is George
afternoon.
Cordomash here?
He's
He's on
gonna be,
remote.
remote, right.
Okay, go right ahead, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Lori Pasqualini. I'm a resident of Norwalk, Connecticut, and the Chief Financial Officer of Ability Beyond. Ability Beyond provides services to 7 different organizations in the state with 7 different funding sources, 2 of which are Department of Developmental Services through our intermediate care facilities, plus grants through Department of Developmental Services. But in addition to that, Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, Bureau of Rehab Services, Office of Work for Strategies, grants through Department of Social Services, and the acquired brain injury waiver. So it's not just DMS, it's all of those state agencies. When we implemented raises over the last few years, we've had to provide different wage increases for people doing identical work, not similar, identical work. And shortly you'll hear from an employee of ours who is one of those people who works for two different agencies. It is not only unfair, it creates tension amongst our workforce. Our turnover, just like most other organizations, is higher than we've ever thought. We thought we had high vacancy rates in 2018 and 2019 when we were underfunded by $1.8 million and got no results, and only got help as a result of the legislature imposing increases starting in 2019 and then throughout the pandemic. We employ nearly 1,000 people, and we serve 1,900 people between the New York border and the Connecticut River. We appreciate all of the efforts made by the legislature, but the discrepancies in funding causes significant vacancies in those areas that are not funded, in addition to the vacancies we have in funded areas. Even the funding that we've got is still significantly too low. Our starting wage is $19 an hour at the highest through developmental disabilities and intermediate care facilities, and $17.50. That's an 8.5% decrease. And we are mostly providing services and hiring people in Fairfield County, not only the richest state, but the richest county in the state. And people just cannot afford to work for us. The turnover. Earlier, you heard Beth talk about the employment specialists. We lose most of our employment specialists either to the state or to other jobs, mostly in for-profit human resources, because they can't afford the $42,000 a year. The State Bureau of Rehab Services just increased wages to $58,000. So now they're hiring our staff. We're training them within 3 months, they hire them. I also want to petition for what most contracts have when you have somebody working closely with another organization, where we get a finder's fee. I just want to mention one other thing. In listening to the earlier testimony, I'd like to offer two things. We do have extensive waiting lists, primarily related to the low wage we're paying. Second, in response to the question on the two-tier system, it's not a two-tier system. It's a three-tier system where the state provides the services, they're paying at one rate plus tremendous benefits. And then you have DDS funded organizations or agencies, and then you have the rest of the human service. So it's really a three-tier. It's just not equitable. I've said in other testimony, I feel it's criminal. It wouldn't be allowed if we did that through any other way, except for that the state's funding it. Otherwise, we would be charged with discrimination. So it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right to our employees, and the state can do better. If you want to really fix it, let the private providers provide all the services and give us a little bit more wage, and you'll save a ton of money for the taxpayers in the state of Connecticut. And thank you so much for your time. And I just want to say one last thing. The modifications that were talked about by the chairs and also the various committee members and prior testifiers, I'm in full support of. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony. Yes. See?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. She knew I was going to want to speak to
Saw
you.
the hand.
Thank you, Lori, for your presentation today. It's nice to see you up from Norwalk. I know it's not an easy drive, and we appreciate you coming in person. It's really, really important to us. This is a super important issue for me in doing the work that we've been doing last year to help the IDD community. One of the concerns that we have is we had lapsed 24.2 million in employment and day services in DDS this year. And one of the things that was highlighted was a $7 million lapse due to lapsed wages due to lower than expected utilization. And we also had some other lapses due to timing of special ed, delays in waitlist initiatives, and other lapses for day utilization. Was wondering, as you are boots on the ground, what is the sort of demand for services that you're seeing with the abilities and beyond?
So the demand is higher than ever. On the employment side, the challenge is we can't get staff because of the wage levels. So and because of the late wage level, we get them, we train them, they leave very quickly. The demand on the residential side is for the people with the highest level of need. If somebody needs more support than the next person, we don't have the staff to support them. So in our day services, people who require one-to-one or more service level, we have not been able to take them back since the pandemic. And they're sitting at home or wherever they're living, not getting the appropriate services. We wish we could do it. We just can't get people. We implemented incentives, shift incentives for the highest, hardest to fill programs. And when that money dries up, we're going to have to stop that. We're trying to bring down overtime with the increased rates. Our overtime is 36% higher than it was pre-pandemic, and we thought vacancy rates were bad before the pandemic, and it's just been incredibly more. The other impact is for our residential programs. They had been getting out in the communities. We do a great job of involving the people we serve in their communities, doing volunteer work, recreational, getting jobs, and we just don't have the staff in the residential programs to get them out like we had pre-pandemic. And during the pandemic, we couldn't do it because of the restrictions, but since then, it's because of staffing.
Yeah, I've spoken to several constituents of mine with adult children that are not able to get access to these services due to the issues with staffing. And it is something that we need to address, and we need to make sure that we realize that these jobs are a profession and this is a career and it is a calling for these folks, but we need to ensure that we treat it like a profession and not something that's just a service that's being done. It is a lifelong profession, and I appreciate you doing this and testifying today. It is something that's super important, and I think one of the things you highlighted was doing the same job for two different rates, and I remember speaking to your organization about that. So appreciate your testimony. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next, we have George Portmarch. Remotely.
Good afternoon, members of the Appropriations Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is George Quartermanch. I have been working at Ability Beyond since last June and would like to take some time to share with you my experience here at this company. Currently, I work between 30 and 32 hours, 6 days a week as an employment specialist while taking 5 courses at Norwalk Community College. My job requires a vast degree of flexibility, and I am immensely grateful for the fact that I am able to work as much as I currently am while still furthering my education. On any given day, I will visit 2 or more job sites and speak with countless managers and employees about the performance of the client I'm working with, as well as the client themselves. This is one of the most rewarding parts of the job. However, there is a steep learning curve. Due to the distinct nature of each individual, it requires a great degree of adaptability, quick thinking, and problem solving. From unclogging bottle return machines, solving scheduling conflicts, to fixing scanners for online deliveries, I am proud to say this is not your typical office job. As a result of the wide variety of clients I work alongside, I have experience with both the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services as well as the Department of Disabilities. This has resulted in diminished compensation due to these 2 programs being funded through different means, despite the fact that I work with both populations. I'd like to share with you one of the success stories I've experienced. Very recently, I got to enjoy the bittersweet moment of concluding my time with a client. I had worked with them since they were hired, helping them with the onboarding process and being with them around 8 hours a week, working at Stop and Shop in a plethora of different roles. Through this, we became friends, and it was an incredible moment when he told me he had concluded his probationary period, finally joining the union, receiving benefits and guaranteed hours. Another person works at Costco handing out samples. One of the first things you will notice about her is she loves to talk. To say she's extroverted would be an understatement, which is one of the main reasons I love working with her. One Friday, we were having a lively conversation. She was going on about how excited she was to get her nails done, until suddenly, mid-sentence, she went silent. I knew something was wrong. This was not the person I had come to know. Her head drooped to her chest and she shifted to the right, leaning on the pallet beside her. She was having a seizure. I dialed 911 and held on to her so she wouldn't fall and hurt herself. Moving her back to her chair, we waited for the paramedics to arrive, and when they did, they diagnosed her, confirming that she had a minor seizure. Since then, she is back to her usual schedule, chatting with her many friends and regulars. While this story isn't usually one meant for a hearing, I think it provides a window into the complexities of being an employment specialist. Passing this bill will expand our company's capacity to reach more individuals and to do more good. It will also incentivize more young people like myself to work at incredible companies like Ability Beyond and gain in-person experience doing a rewarding, albeit challenging, job I have come to love. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony and sharing with us what a typical day is. Our guests are working in this area. Thank you, and have a great day. Thank you. Next, we have Heather Latora. Oh, no, we're leaving because this is the last one.
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me come on a few minutes late. At least it's not midnight, it's in the afternoon, so thank you. My name is Heather Latora from Rocky Hill, and I've been working at Marrakesh for the past 38 years. I am here in favor of SB 374. Marrakesh has been in operation for the past 53 years, assisting people with intellectual disabilities, with physical disabilities, people with autism, people who are unhoused, people with chronic mental illness, people with acquired brain injuries, people who are deaf, and people who suffer from addiction, people who need safe, affordable housing, youth in the foster care program, people who are un- and underemployed, and people with economic disadvantages in general. We work with DDS, DEMIS, DCF, DSS, and other funders. So along with my colleagues here, we're helping people every day, 365 days a year, 24/7. And we have been since the days of deinstitutionalization and community living and working opportunities for people in the state. When we were brought to the table, when human service nonprofits were brought to the table to help Connecticut empty out Mansfield Training School and divert placements from Southbury to community placements, we were there. We were ready, willing, and able to partner. We've always been an efficient partners that bring great quality and choice. And as a contracted provider, partner, as other states partner, we were offered payment for our services, and we received annual COLAs, annual cost of living increases on our contracts. And you will see below, if you have hopefully you have my testimony, because I do have a chart, that our contracts with DEMIS, DCF over the years since 2001, you'll notice that after 2007, it fell apart and we stopped getting those annual COLAs. And I'm afraid that now we have long waiting lists, even for emergency placements. And we had to close a house, a 3-bed DDS funded home in Milford. We have people on waiting lists for over a year. In fiscal year 2019, we did start finally receiving increased funding from the state, but it was provided differently for each state agency. And how do you put a different price on caring for different people? Out of our 650 staff that work here, they work through contracts from DEMIS, DCF, DDS, etc. And so the salary differential is now so significant that our staff are leaving our DEMIS funded programs to work in our DDS funded programs due to the increased wages. We need to go back across the board. For the COLA across the board for all state agencies, not just one versus the other. They need to reach, all of our staff need to reach that differential that was set in 2019. In 2019, you guys decided that what the work is at least 46% more than minimum wage. But now the DDS direct care professional earns less than half of that differential, and our DEMA staff are even closer to minimum wage. So not only the wages are impacted by the state agencies divided in their COLA allocations, but benefits are as well. We are now asking, I hope someone could help, asking DEMAs to reconsider their denial to allow us to use our retention dollars for our employee pension contribution. Imagine if we could only give the pension contribution to our DDS funded staff. Now there's a way to do it, and it's denied. Our employees are being recruited by companies who could pay more, where they have less responsibility. Several of our employees left Marrakesh in tears because they didn't want to leave, yet they had to make this choice for their families. Now our current employees must leave the people they really care about in our DEMAS programs to go work in the DDS programs to get wages. So,
Sorry, Ms. Latour,
please
wrap up
yeah.
your comments.
Yep. Please support SB 374, an act concerning equalizing rates of pay for nonprofit providers. And please call us for assistance if you have any questions about what is going on and how to make this better for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Any questions or comments? Thank you so much. That said, thank you. And that